You found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, me and Pat are going to break down Windhorst giving another update on the Lakers in their pursuit of Zach LaVine. Casey Johnson also backs a previous Zoe rumor that he could be included in trades. And Pascal Siakam to the Indiana Pacers. I don't like that for the Bulls. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're at your team every single day. That's Pat the Designer, host and creator of the Windy City Breeze, and host of the Chicago Bears podcast over at ESPN 1000. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Batman, in the ever-going cycle of the Los Angeles Lakers and Zach LaVine. They're in, they're out, they're back in, they're back out. Brian Windhorst recently updated saying that he does not expect the Los Angeles Lakers to trade for Zach LaVine. Okay, cool. How do you feel about it, Pat?
I mean, listen, I think that's kind of where we're at in the conversation. We had this conversation on today's episode of this Breeze Sports Talk Daily, right, where Zach is it seems like is the consolation prize. We know that they're now in on DeJounte Murray. We know that other teams are in on Pascal Siakam now with the Pascal trade possibly going in. Maybe Zach is possibly being worked out here, which the numbers on that are crazy, brother. But maybe Zach is the consolation prize for a team a little bit sooner here. But I mean, listen, like it's. It sucks to say that we're kind of here where you almost look at Zach LaVine as a guy that people don't value. And like we said before, right? AK somewhat shot himself in the foot by going with continuity because you're never going to get that package that the New York Knicks were willing to offer you for Zach LaVine last season. You'll never see anything close to that again. And I made this comparison off mic. I also made it on that same episode of The Breeze, right? Is that doesn't it feel like Zach LaVine is kind of Brandon Marshall? A player that is incredibly talented, a player that is absolutely elite at what he can do offensively. He's a player that when locked in can be a really good defender. So you see all the positives, and yet this guy's never been a part of a winning situation, right? You look at B. Marsh. Yeah. B. Marsh has never won a playoff game in his life. I don't even believe he's been in the playoffs. So maybe Zach has a leg up on him on that situation, but like it just feels like there's kind of this. The rest of the team sees the value that he brings, but don't believe he's worth what the Bulls are asking. And that puts the Bulls in a bad situation here.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down, well, I guess in a bad situation if they're still hoping. Like, we knew this. Like, at this point, like I said it on a couple episodes ago, if he gets moved, it's as a consolation prize. That's it. And I don't mean that to crap on Zach because I still like Zach LaVine as a player. And I think if Zach is no longer miscast as a one, he goes to a team with a solid coach, he's a number 2 or even solid 3, he's gonna have a good part of his rest of this contract out. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to this. Teams are now going to be more selective of what they do and what they trade for with the new rules. And it doesn't mean Zach can't be moved at all. I see a lot of people talking about what the new luxury tax rules are and things like that. Basically, right now would be the time where teams would want to absorb salary if they're okay with paying the luxury tax because they're not going to be able to if they keep being in that second tax apron. So I still think Zach's going to get moved, but we know the Bulls aren't going to get an amazing deal back for Zach. It's not going to happen.
And I think this is the tough part, right? Because we also got that report that Jerry Reinsdorf was one of the people vetoing deals. Like, you're not even at this point, right? Are you even getting a deal that you feel is more than just matching salaries?
That's a great question because I think It depends, right? Because I think either way, the Bulls are going to get quality depth pieces back. But if you're looking for anybody who's nearing or even has near the ceiling of Zach LaVine, you're not going to get that, and that's okay, right? That's okay. When you're as soon as a trade demand comes out, on top of the other things, the market, other things like that, you at that point knew you weren't. Like we talked about this many times. You passed on the New York Knicks deal at last trade deadline. You're never going to get that type of deal back. It's just not coming for you.
Yeah, and I think that's the part where you feel like, right, like maybe you're in between a rock and a hard place and you have no choice but to just go out there and take whatever's available, right? Like with the Lakers backing out of Zach LaVine, the Lakers were the team that felt the most interested in Zach LaVine. Now, the one thing that I do want people to think about, and I've talked about this a couple of times, is there's some teams out there that you can still move Zach LaVine to, but you're taking probably on some contracts that aren't worth the players that you're getting back, or some guys that are just role-playing depth pieces, because there are still teams out there that you pretty much can say aren't going to be able to get free agents to come there. The greatest quote that I've heard, and prayers to Koo, because it's going to be a long time before he sees a winning team in that Pistons organization again. I forget who it was. I think it was on the same Windhorst podcast, but I forget who said it. They said, I don't believe that free agency is an option for the Detroit Pistons. What? like an entire route to get players. An entire
but you got to ask yourself,
major part of the offseason.
Who really would sign with the Detroit Pistons?
Listen, you thought you got to throw me a Monty Williams deal. But I think because of that reason, right, maybe the Pistons are a team that would be interested in a Zach LaVine, because they're looking at it and saying, listen, maybe Zach LaVine can't get us to, 60 wins, but we're winning 3 games. Can he get us to 38? Can he make us competitive in East game? Like, you have to think, there are teams that are worse off than the Bulls right now because they're so far the other direction, and there's nothing but ineptitude in the organization as a whole. At least we're just kind of like in the middle. We see young players that are starting to develop in the right place, and maybe there's some ineptitude above. We at least know there's ineptitude at the very top of this whole thing, but we won't speak on that. We'll never be on this network. But I just like, there is still those teams that you have to be looking at. You have to be picking up the phone and saying, hey, listen, you're never going to get anybody to come down there. Why don't you get somebody that if you make him at least the number 2 on your team, but probably the number 1 because you have nobody else down there, you're going to get 25 to 30 points a game. You'll get fans in your building. You'll get things that
I'm telling you right now,
team.
Nobody's showing up to watch Zach LaVine play basketball in the Detroit Pistons.
They showed up to watch Blake Griffin play basketball on the Detroit Pistons, and Blake didn't have no legs left, bro.
But
there was the team of Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose, and the combination of the two of them had a pair of good knees.
But no, and they still weren't. They weren't selling out that stadium. Nobody was showing up to those games.
Now they made the playoffs then. They were selling out.
But that was a team that was winning. You can add Zach LaVine to the Pistons. They not go make the playoffs.
Hey, listen, not this year, but you get playoffs.
I
don't even have that on here no more. I used to have playoffs, bro. What happened to playoffs, bro? That's tough. But yeah, dog, like it's you got to do something.
The Pistons are better off just sucking and hoping a young guy is going to just, you know what the hell I mean. Stop. Everything is in a pause. Pause traumatic stress disorder. We are suffering from that as a community.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
Playoffs.
I just hope we can win a game.
But yeah,
I feel you, Jim Moore. I feel you.
Just trying to sell the Detroit Pistons. You're slick there. You're slick there, brother.
Hey, bro, listen. All I'm saying, who's coming?
Nobody. And that's a pause.
That might be. That's a pause. That's a pause. Right? The Pistons are sucking and nobody's coming. That's what we said, basically.
Apparently, Zion was a lot. But with that said,
aren't y'all glad y'all have us as a podcast host on Locked On, bro? Like, who else is making potentially 38-win basketball that's entertaining, bro? There's no way.
It is what it is, man. But next up, we're going to be talking about KC Johnson and his comments on a previous, adding to a previous Lonzo Ball rumor that we heard. Before we get into that, got to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors, and that is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, Pat. So we heard from Mark Stein, I think it was about a week or two ago, that the Bulls could look to use Lonzo Ball's contract to move in a bigger trade. Well, Casey Johnson's come out earlier today and basically reaffirmed that, saying that from what he has heard, that the Bulls are open to moving Lonzo Ball's contract in a deal that's going to net them something back that can currently help this team. Now, this is a big change in mindset for the Chicago Bulls because you've talked about it. You know, you talk about AK holding on to Jamal Murray and things like that. But even with that said, like, this is the type of move that franchises do make. The Bulls just aren't typically one of those franchises. Lonzo Ball's contract is covered 80% by insurance. So that would mean that Jerry is paying out a little bit more money. Still doesn't affect their salary cap any different. But what do you think about the Bulls looking at the situation with Lonzo? Do you think this may mean that maybe they have more concern about Lonzo than what they initially did about his return? Or do you think this is just a front office being smart and exploring all options to try to go ahead and move this team a little bit further?
I'll believe it when I see it. Is this the logical thing to do? 110%. I just don't believe that the Bulls often do the logical thing.
Yes,
I remember,
exactly.
let's be real. Like I laughed with Nick the entire time because he sat there and
thought we were tripping.
He thought we were trading everybody. He thought, and I was like, Nick, there's no way. The host of Locked On Mavs, he's like, there's no way we're trading Zach LaVine. We're not trading DeMar. Like, it would take a massive, like, you know, everybody wanting to get out of here for us to trade everybody. And then when the Bulls were like, we really want to see what we have here, he was just like, I can't believe an organization operates this way. Yeah. Welcome to Chicago, where most of our teams operate this way. And I think here's the part about this. If they do make a move like this, why it would be so big for the Bulls, right? Because me and Haize have said this multiple times. The likelihood that Lonzo Ball ever plays basketball again, based on what we've heard, is like 15%. Right? Yes, maybe he can start running, jumping, cutting, all of that. But with this type of surgery, there's one other player that basically had a similar surgery to this, and it was just so he could run around with his kids. And he played hockey.
And hockey players built different. That's another thing that makes it scary.
Connor Bedard got his jaw broke. They said 6 to 8 weeks, bro. Imagine a player getting it. Nico Mirotic got his orbital socket punched in, and that man basically was just like, I'm done. I'm done for like.
I mean, he did play again, but he definitely was like, hey, Chicago, I'm up out of here. You got room for me. I'm done.
And man, when Bobby Portis punched him straight to New Orleans. But to me, right, you look at the situation with Lonzo's contract, and I'd be surprised if the Bulls move it. I'd still be surprised if the Bulls move it because that's the logical thing to do. But if they do move it, right, like, this opens things up for the Chicago Bulls. This opens an opportunity for you to actually get somebody who you're paying to be able to play on the court.
And that's when you look at the Bulls and us hearing that they want to still get win now players. This is like I said, this is a smart move. This is a sensible move. And I know Lonzo Ball stands and fans are going to hear this and be like, but what if Lonzo comes back and he's balling out? The fact you have to play the averages. We have 1 year left on Lonzo Ball's contract. By the time he comes back, it'll be 2 years and 9 months that he was out of basketball. Very slim chance he's going to come back and do anything within that year. And you now have the remainder of this season from the trade deadline and all of next season potentially to use that for a player that can compete and play now for this team. It's just smart. And because of it, I have the same concerns. When's the last time we see the Bulls do something that was just smart? It's been a minute.
And I mean, listen, I think this started off as smart, but it just didn't end up as smart, right? Like now you're holding on to guys that on a team that you don't feel like is going to pan out, and you're watching the rest of the Eastern Conference continue to get better than you. That's just the facts. Like you're sitting here, and even when you were moving in the right direction, you would still have fans tell you, right, like that Zach LaVine coming back hasn't slowed that process down, hasn't hindered that process in the slightest. Meanwhile, I've seen a Bulls team that to me looks very different than the team that we saw without him. It's no disrespect to Zach. It's no it's just time. It's time for you to move on. It's time you feel like you have a player that you can move on with. Let's make the decision. And for me, that's the big thing here. You want to see this front office finally make the tough decisions. I feel like we haven't seen that, right? The tough decision. And I'm fine with I was somebody who was fine with continuity. But at this point, right, the tough decisions are when somebody tells you that they don't believe it's working, believe them. Zach LaVine told you by requesting the trade, I don't believe this is going to work.
This is facts. Now, when you look at Lonzo's contract, which is what, $21 million, if the Bulls were to move that, now they could get really creative, which again, this is what a really smart front office would do. I'm a team franchise. The Bulls probably won't, because that means Jerry will be paying money. Because technically, we could still use that disabled player exception. As long as we use that before we move Lonzo, we could still use that and trade Lonzo Ball. They're probably not going to do both of those, though.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, probably not. And at this point, who are you using it on?
I mean, you never know who's going to be on the buyout market. But then again, we still got our mid-level exception. We still got part of our mid-level in the full buy-in.
Yeah, I think that's the reason you wait, though, right? Like this, we're still in the playoffs technically, right? I believe we are the ninth seed or the 8th seed.
9th seed right now.
So, right, like we're still in the playoffs, 9th in the Eastern Conference. We're in the play-in right now. We're competing for the playoffs. But what are you going to get? Right? Like even on a buyout market, are you going to go get? I guess we got Pat Bev off the buyout. I mean, like I guess maybe does Pat Bev get bought out again? I've heard talks.
There could be
from Pat Bev, by the way. From like it was on his podcast. It was literally on his podcast. He said, "You think they'll buy me out?"
That's funny.
Or no, maybe he was asking. He said, "I think he said you think they'll trade me." And so, I don't know. Maybe we get Pat Bev back. At the end of the day, I would be very surprised to see the Chicago Bulls go out here and make what to most people would seem like the common sense move. I guess what team is doing it though? What team are you partnering with to make this happen? Like,
I mean, to me, if you think about it with Zoe, right? I look just off the top of my head. I'm not going to name specific teams, but maybe a team that has a player that they want to just get rid of. They want to get out some money because at that point, the team that trades for Zoe, and I looked this up, could still file the career-ending injury exception if Zoe isn't ready to go next season. So that could be something, because we're not going to file it. They could do that. So that's an option. So any type of team that has somebody that they may want to dump some salary, and then maybe even to look to still get out of Zoe's contract in the offseason is a possibility. A team that's rebuilding could do that as well. Like there are a couple of different type scenarios. I don't right now have a list of teams that would probably fit that scenario though.
It's just it's a weird situation all the way around, and to me, it's something that you should have been done. You knew he wasn't coming back. You knew he's not.
That's the thing, though. They really did think that he was coming back last season. I truly believe that they really thought that there was a chance of that. I don't know why, but they really did think that there was a chance of that.
I don't know, man. Again, right? And the main reason why I don't believe that this is going to happen is because they believe that he could come back. And it's not to say you're not holding out hope that he can. It's not to say that you're not hoping that he can make that kind of transition. But at the end of the day, right, like this is a serious injury. This isn't just a regular knee injury. This is a knee injury that's held him out for 2 years. And it's going to be 3 by the time he's actually able to come back.
Yep.
This is not a normal injury. If he steps on a court and takes a few steps again, we give a standing ovation. So you have to be realistic here. You have to be real. Like, I'm sorry, if you just want to give the standing ovation at the UC, then like trade them with the stipulation that whatever team gets them, you cut them and bring them back for a game at the UC. Yeah, I mean, like you bring him back, like you re-sign him, like when he's ready to go to like a $100,000 deal, vet minimum, whatever it is, and you let him come back and he stands on the court and you clap it up and you tell him, "I go sit on the bench before you blow your knee out again." I don't know, man. I don't know.
It is what it is, man.
It's a bad situation for Lonzo all the way around, and I'm sorry, it's a bad situation for the Bulls all the way around. And at this point, like I've said for the entire time, I just hope that Lonzo is able to run around with his kids again. Yep. Listen, man, before we get into this final topic where we got to talk about a potential trade that could be absolutely ridiculous, I do have to tell you guys all about BetterHelp, man. I mean, listen, me and Haize are both two guys that have talked about therapy ad nauseum, talked about the benefits of therapy, and talked about what it's really been able to do for all of us. I mean, around this time with the new year, a lot of times we get obsessed with how we want to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we already do right. Maybe you finally organize one part of your space and you want to tackle another, or maybe you're taking your supplements every morning and now you want to actually be able to eat breakfast too. Therapy can help you find the strength to stick with that, and you can do that through BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We also got to tell you guys all about FanDuel. So once you're healthy, let's get to gambling, baby. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, like same game parlays. Find new bets in the new Explore tab. Make parlays in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays and more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, Pat. Well,
wild back ad read.
With that said, man, a potential trade could go down in our own division, and it's one that could be major if it happens. And so, per Shams Charania, he says the Raptors and Pacers are actively engaged in trade talks centered around two-time All-Star Pascal Siakam that would send him to Indiana for a package that includes Bruce Brown, other salaries, and 3 first-round draft picks, sources tell The Athletic. Now, let's be clear, not saying anything's necessarily imminent, but hey, by the time we get this podcast up, for all we know, the deal could be done. It could not be done for another couple of weeks. But if this were to happen, Pat, how does that make you feel about the Indiana Pacers?
It adds to their already very tall, athletic lineup. I'm not gonna lie to you. This sucks if you're a Bulls fan right now, but I'm so glad somebody in the NBA is finally going, hey, y'all know tall dudes are important. I'm so sick of small ball. I'm ready for it to die. Like, tall guys are good at putting the ball in the basket as well.
Bro, you act like he's a 7 foot. He's 6'8".
Bro, he's 6'8". Their entire lineup is 6'8" and up, minus Halliburton and Buddy Hield. They can put a lineup out there with Obi Toppin, Miles Turner, and Jalen Smith, and now you can have Pascal Siakam on that now, right? Like, it depends on what the final details end up being. Maybe Toronto says, nah, you're not going to have all them tall dudes, and I got to play you in the East. But, like, bro, like, I'm sick of watching small ball. I'm done with it, bro. These tall dudes can score too. Let's get some more of them on our team. Because you know what? Every time we play a team that's in our division that's got tall dudes, we sitting here like, dang, why can't we rebound? Because you got Andre Drummond and Nikola Vucevic, and both of them can run the same speed.
Yeah, but they're tall. They're the same height as anybody on the Indiana Pacers. I'm just saying, like, Indiana Pacers are the only other team with no true 7 footers.
Listen, tall and athletic. Let's add the athletic in there.
That. There you go.
I said tall and athletic.
No, you every time tall dudes. Well, you're Vince McMahon. You turned into Vince McMahon. You look like The Rock, but you turned into Vince McMahon.
Listen, clearly I'm talking about tall, athletic guys that can play basketball. But at the end of the day, like, I don't even care at this point. Just 6'8" and up. Like we're running with 17 guards on the team. Javon Carter just makes everyone else look taller. That's the only reason that it looks like we have a normal sized team. I'm done with it. No, honestly, the Pascal, adding Pascal to that team is overkill. It just is, bro.
I mean, listen, and this is what it is like when you have an aggressive front office, because keep in mind, this front office went out and got Bruce Brown this offseason, who just was coming off helping the Denver Nuggets win a title. He's come in, hasn't necessarily played terrible for them, but not amazing either. But for them to immediately be willing to use his contract to go out and get a player the caliber of Pascal Siakam, that's just smart front office, bro. That's just smart.
And it's tough to see somebody so close to us doing basketball so much better than us on a consistent basis. You know what I mean? Like that part sucks. And listen, at the end of the day, the Bulls won't be able to compete with the Pacers with the current roster that they have. I guess the real question is, because I don't view, now height does make a difference, but I don't view Pascal as like a leaps and bounds better player than Zach LaVine. I don't even view him as a better player than Zach LaVine, if I'm being honest. Does this possibly increase the trade value for Zach LaVine? I don't know if you get 3 first-round picks, but does this increase the trade value for Zach LaVine if you were to make a deal happen?
Well, I think the thing, I don't necessarily know. The only reason why I say that, and I agree with you as far as how you view Pascal Siakam, so I'm not arguing that. But I think you got a couple of different things. Pascal's been relatively healthy since basically the 2020 season, where I think that's when he played like less than 60 games, but he's been relatively healthy other than that. So health, and then also the fact that he's expiring, which is crazy that you're going to give up. And he's already come out and said he's not signing an extension with any team that trades for him. He is going to play it out in free agency. So that is a huge risk to give up 3 first-round picks for a player that has told everyone, no matter what, I'm testing free agency. He learned from Kawhi when he was there.
I guess my argument would be, is it though, right? Because like you have a star level player on your team already. You have. Like, I think now, well, I guess maybe it is because are you going to convince people to come to Indiana? But like, even to me, right? Like, that's just a Rick Carlisle thing. Why is Ben Mathurin still coming off the bench?
Well, remember that he started off the season starting and it just didn't work.
It didn't. I get it. Like, you got to find some way to make that work.
But you know what, though? You know what? Ben Mathurin's in the middle of a sophomore slump, though.
Yeah.
And we don't really talk now, because I think everybody understands that he's going to work himself out of it because he's just too hard of a worker. But people aren't really talking about that. He's in a bit of a sophomore slump.
Yeah. No, he's listen, he was at the top of the world last year and he was living it up and dominating. A little bit, a couple points less this year. Shooting a 3-ball way better though, but also getting 3 less minutes. So I again, it's.
And he's shooting the 3-ball, but he's taking less, only half less
of them, yeah. Which probably is one of them. He's like, stop shooting so much, brother. What are you doing? I don't know, man. Like I think it's not an apples to apples comparison, but I do think that there's some, hey, if you traded Pascal for this, we should at least be able to get this.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Every deal that goes down, they're going to be looking at that and see how they can they could work it. And so, I mean, and they should. A front office should. If you see players traded around and you're trying to trade your player, you'd be crazy not to. And other teams also would be crazy not to try to use it. Well, him and Pascal are similar, but listen, Pascal's been on the court more. Pascal rebounds more. 100%. Whatever else it is there. So we'll see,
man. We'll see what it ends up being. This feels like you're blowing it up. This feels like when we traded away Bobby Portis. Like there was always just like, we're trading away a player that's probably going to be pretty good in this league. Maybe not a star, but you always felt like we could find another Bobby Portis. Well, and then we never found another Bobby Portis.
The Bobby Portis situation was weird too, because they traded him because he turned down an extension, but he was a restricted free agent.
Yeah.
Even if he did turn it down, you could have matched anything. It was so weird.
It was a weird situation, but I just mean from the aspect of, right, like you're trading away a player knowing you're getting dog water back. Like I think we got Timothy Lawala back or whatever his name was.
Lawawa?
Timothy, he was a French player. He played like
I know who it is. I'm just saying the way you pronounce it.
Yeah, Lababa, whatever it was. A solid 3.5 games after the Bulls got rid of him. I'm trying to think who else came back in that deal. Like, was that? No, because we drafted Gafford. I don't remember who else came back in that deal.
Otto Porter Jr.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. But remember,
I said what I said.
But remember that first season that we got it looked like it was going to work. Otto Porter played great that first year that we traded for him with the rest of that remaining season. And then we were hoping coming back into from that off season, and he was terrible. He's
never again. Never. Well, I don't know if he was terrible. He was never healthy again. Like what did he play after that? Like a solid 40 games for the Bulls after that? Like he was here for
I think didn't we move him again by that following trade deadline? Like
no, I think we kept him for a minute.
So this is crazy. So yeah, we kept him for 2 seasons afterwards.
Yeah.
But in those 2 seasons, we did trade him in the 2020-21 season. But we traded for him in 2018-19. He played 15 games for us. He started all 15 of those games. He averaged 17 points per game in that. The following season, full season here, he started 9 games and only played a total of 14. Yep. Then the season after that, he played 25 games for us. That's crazy, bro.
Yep. And by the way, he was on that ridiculous contract that Washington gave him, and we just never I was like, y'all got to get out of that. Like, what do y'all do?
Then he ended up being on the Warriors team that won the title, so he did get a ring.
Yeah, he got a ring out of it. Yeah. Got a ring out of it. Big shout out to him, man. I don't know, man. It just feels like you're gonna trade Zach LaVine. Like we're gonna hear the deal, and it's gonna be like, you got back, the ghost of DeJounte Murray. I don't know what the heck I was going to say there. I couldn't even think of anything bad enough to say. I didn't have a good joke ready for that one. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The ghost of Jerry West's shoes. Like, that's what we're going to get back in this deal, bro. It still wasn't good. But
Mike?
I had to throw something out there. Hey, listen, if somebody can find Jerry West's shoes, I would put them on Patrick Williams for sure. You got to get on the P. Will, right?
No, Julian Phillips.
Oh, you're out on P. Will completely. You're out on P. Will. The upside. Give it to the young kid.
Give it to the younger one.
Give it to the young kid. I mean, P. Will is still the young kid. Let's get up out of here, man. Follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me on everything at Pat The Designer. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love. Peace.
What if they tuned in and didn't show love?
F them.
Okay. You guys can follow me at CEO Haize. We want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls. We are free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube. For Pat The Designer, I'm Haize. This has been Locked On Bulls. Peace, y'all.
Let's go, Bulls.